Hey, we are live. What's up, everybody? I'm Doug.
And I am Kevin, and we're just a couple of minutes late, but we are here.
We are here, and apologies in advance to all those people not watching us live on YouTube right now. We are going through some changes with our streaming platforms, and so we'll be broadcasting live tonight on Facebook, but you guys should be able to catch us on the replay on YouTube. What's happening, Kevin?
Doug, I'm hanging in there. How about yourself? What kind of week?
Well, I'm pretty sure that Dynamite's the only wrestling I've seen this week, so
Well,
it's
the good thing is that the topic for tonight is cord cutting in wrestling. So, other than the news, which may be end up being news to you and our big finish for most of the show, you don't have to have seen very much wrestling.
that's good because you are our de facto expert on cord cutting in wrestling. I think you're able to track down, and maybe you can give me some pointers on where I can watch some stuff because I still have difficulty finding a lot of stuff right now. So are we ready to jump into the news? Let me see if we still have our banners. Let me with the Oh, there we go. We do still have our banners. Want to hop into the opening bell? Yes, there we
We still
go.
have our very low tech opening bell. So,
That's
as long as we have that, Doug, this one's for you. We'll catch you up on the news. How about that, brother?
awesome. Please do.
So, folks, WWE has reportedly dismissed as many as 70 employees this week. This relates back to the furloughs that we talked about here on the show, and that was the news around the wrestling world back in April. Many of those folks were under the impression that they would be brought back because it was furlough, and that just kept getting put off month by month by month. Then this week, most of those individuals discovered that they will not be coming back. It doesn't appear, Doug, that this affects any talent unless you've heard differently as far as active wrestlers go.
Actually, I did hear a little about this, and as far as I know, there's not a lot of talents it's affected. Excuse me. I think most of this is affecting folks that were on the live side. Wow,
Yeah.
I am really burly. There we go. Wow, my camera just super threw me out of focus there. But yeah, I understand that. There are no live events. You can't keep those live event personnel employed. So it's unfortunate but understandable.
There are some high profile names, Doug. I'm sure we'll figure out
Yes.
more as it goes on, people who self identify, because it's not like WWE made any announcement as to who was being let go, who wasn't being brought back. But Mike Rotunda, who is a backstage fixture and also the father of Bray Wyatt, was one of those let go. And maybe even more surprising to fans was Gerald Briscoe, who many probably remember from his on air role in the 90s as one of Vince's backstage stooges.
One of the stooges, yes.
Yeah, in real life, though, the man's a Hall of Famer, brother of Jack Briscoe. They were quite the tag team for years and years. And his relationship with Vince McMahon dates back to the mid 80s when he and his brother convinced the investors of Georgia Championship Wrestling to sell their Saturday night 6:05 time slot to Vince McMahon, that Black Saturday, as it came to be known, when people tuned in to see their NWA and got Vince welcoming them instead. So this is a 40-year relationship, and Gerald went public on Twitter just talking about how stressful a time it had been, and asking for some space, but basically said that Vince told him that he was no longer needed after 40 some years. So definitely some hurt feelings in WWE right now.
Sure. And again, very unfortunate, but I get it, especially with a 40-year veteran employee, that, that salary has to be large, and better to, ask if it's about ready for retirement time for them than, continue trying to pay them where you really can't pay them. But again, I unfortunate, but I do get it with, the traveling side of the business and the live events being non-existent right now. Cuts do have to be made, but
it is interesting you brought it up like that, because this report that I read that was talking about, the dissatisfaction with the way that it was handled. There are obviously hurt feelings, but many of those with hurt feelings are reporting that it appears as if the younger, cheaper talent were the ones that were brought back, and everyone else who had been there for any given period of time were those that were let go. But I guess as we learn more, obviously, if there's any names that folks here watching us might recognize, we will pass those along to you as well. So we'll go from the darkness of some folks not being brought back to good news for someone will be brought back. Nigel McGuinness, who was among those furloughed back in April, is reportedly on his way back to the NXT UK announce desk because NXT UK will be back on air beginning this Thursday. And now that there is a role for him, Nigel will be back calling that action. While we're on the subject of announcers, Doug, a couple of things that I meant to mention in the news section last week. But Mauro Ranallo is not returning to WWE. He was not, this is unrelated to the furlough business we're currently talking about, but Mauro had, his enthusiasm and love of the product obviously made him a fan favorite with the NXT audience. But, his time in the WWE wasn't without, its share of ups and downs and some controversy. He had a few a disastrous stint on SmackDown where the Vince McMahon production in his headset, as opposed to what he was used to in NXT, didn't set well with Mauro, who has been pretty open about his his depression and his social anxiety and some of his mental health. Basically, is a proponent for mental health because of being public with some of his own issues. But some of those issues, Doug, helped lead to some hurt feelings amongst Mauro and some of his co-workers too. If you remember, he had some bad encounters with JBL and I believe Corey Graves. Corey might have said something on air, and that Mauro apparently took it one way when Corey was trying to just be in character, supposedly. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunate. The man was good at what he did, but it was an amicable parting from my understanding, and everyone wished the other side well. So who knows? It's the world of wrestling. There could be a reunion at some point. But for now, if you've noticed Vic Joseph back on NXT, folks, the last couple of weeks, that is the reason why. I think actually TakeOver 30 was probably the first time we did not see Mauro there, and that's why apparently when they had parted ways. And then, as far as announcers go, again, meant to mention it last week, but Excalibur is back, as you've noticed the last 2 weeks, folks, on AEW. He was took a little sabbatical related to some things that he had said many years ago on air, and had
in character.
But probably, particularly in our current environment, in character or not, I think he probably would make some different decisions today.
in character, but nevertheless incredibly inappropriate, especially by today's standards. But
he served his punishment, and he is back, and everyone deserves a second chance, particularly if they're contrite and sorry. And Excalibur is also extremely good at what he does and enhances the product. So here's to having him back and hoping that everybody, moving forward, makes better decisions and doesn't get in the doghouse again.
Right.
Doug, AEW is expected to add another hour of broadcast television. This is something that had been talked about pre-pandemic, but obviously once the pandemic hit, it definitely put the brakes on things. There is no word on exactly what this is going to be, but because they are back to producing TV in front of fans, even if on a limited capacity, apparently these talks are back on, and both Cody and Tony have been mentioning it in interviews, and that they expect that to happen before the end of this year. So, in the next couple of months, we'll see another hour of television. They say it is not dark, because that was a rumor. Some folks were told maybe they're moving dark to, TBS or what have you. But they said this is going to be original concept and a whole different show, and dark's going to remain on their YouTube channel. So who knows? It's not even clear as to where it's going to be broadcast. Just because they're on TNT, obviously, let's not forget it's a large corporate empire they're a part of. So that umbrella could be anything from TBS to the HBO Max platform. So stay tuned. And then I will lastly mention, Doug, that we've had a change, an update in WWE's schedule when it comes to their pay-per-views moving forward. Obviously, we got Clash of Champions coming up here in 2 weeks, which we'll be, of course, previewing and reviewing here, as we always do. But Hell in a Cell, which was originally scheduled for November 1st, is now going to take place a week earlier on October 25th. And the reason for this move, relatively close to the event, many believe, it's not been announced as to the reason, but many believe it's because WWE's deal that they currently have with the Amway Center that has allowed the Thunderdome concept to come to life on all pay-per-views and TV product right now. That ends on October 30th. So unless they re-up that, I guess there's a chance that they do something other than Thunderdome. And now I'm just thinking, would that be beyond Thunderdome?
It would indeed be beyond Thunderdome. It would indeed.
But yeah, so if you move it to October 25th, you can at least have Hell in a Cell in front of the Thunderdome crowd with 3,000 LED screens and what have you. That is
brutal.
yeah, that's right. So yeah, Doug, that's the news this week. So now you're all caught up.
Awesome. All right. See you next week, everybody. Oh, no, wait. No, wait a minute.
Don't go. There's more. But wait, there's more.
I don't know. This new layout on the screen here has me a little confused with things. Oh, there we go. Main event. We're ready for a main event, right?
We are ready for the main event, folks, and hopefully you chime in on this discussion and let us know what you think and any tips and tricks that you have. So Doug and I discussed this a couple months ago as a potential topic that would be of interest to people, to wrestling fans. Obviously, if you're watching us on the interwebs, you're no stranger to cord cutting. We're probably not going to insult your intelligence here by going into a huge definition of what cord cutting is, but it goes without saying that it's definitely accelerating at a very, very high rate. So today we're going to talk about cord cutting for wrestling fans. And before we even get started, Doug, it's probably worth mentioning to the people that we're not here to talk about any illegal services or how you can find things. We're just talking strictly legal services, and we're going to look at cord cutting from a very broad definition. And that most broad definition is simply without traditional cable or without traditional satellite, because I know to some really orthodox cord cutters out there, anything beyond an antenna is not really cord cutting.
Wow, that's some pretty hardcore cord cutting.
That's hardcore because you and I, we keep up with Raw and SmackDown and AEW by using YouTube TV, which is a streaming service, a package streaming service that to some is just another subscription like cable. These folks, again, if it's not an antenna, even something like the network, WWE Network or Netflix or something like that wouldn't be strict cord cutting. So we're not going to look at the really strict definition of cord cutting. We're going to talk about services, and we're going to talk about apps, and we're going to talk about places around the internet that you can find wrestling product. And if it's going to have a price tag to it, if it's a subscription-based service, we're going to mention that. But a lot of what we're going to talk about today, Doug, is wrestling for free. And who doesn't like free?
I like wrestling and I like free stuff. So wrestling for free is for me.
Well, let's start, Doug, with some things that is a mix of free and not free. Because, one way that a cord cutter could get their wrestling fix is through third-party apps. And those apps are, one's not owned by the company, not like a WWE Network, but, are not, things like Fight TV or BR Live.
Right.
So I'll talk a little bit about Fight, and I'll give it over to you for BR because I know you've got more experience with that. But the Fight app is free, but there are in-demand purchases, folks, that you can make on that app. And when you make those purchases, it's a way you could access content like pay-per-views from the NWA, pay-per-views from Impact Wrestling. A lot of independents have shows that you can get there and pay for a la carte. However, the free tier that you can have by just giving up your email address also has tons of content. A lot of them, even weekly shows that otherwise are aired on cable or satellite in particular regions. So say you don't have cable or satellite, or you're out of a region where you can't get these particular wrestling shows, you can see things like Ring of Honor, Championship Wrestling from Florida, Hollywood, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. All of these things are available as part of the free tier of the app. And, the BR Live app, Doug, is something you're familiar with because of AEW, right?
This is true. I think maybe one of the first couple of AEW pay-per-views were on Fight or BR, but they're pretty much exclusively BR now. Because I was just pulling up some stuff here to see exactly what else I can find on BR other than the World Arm Wrestling League. It looks like just a quick search, and I see a lot of AEW and not a lot of anything else because it's bringing up me a lot of replays if you just search for wrestling. But these are, of course, paid. You have to pay for these. There's no free AEW pay-per-views, unfortunately, unless we count Fight for the Fallen. So
but again, if you don't though have access to TNT, that BR Live, it does give you access to the pay-per-views as you pay for them.
Right.
But I believe that they put Dynamite up there or archive it for free, don't they?
Well, I don't know. Let me have a look here and see, because it doesn't look like there's a very friendly layout for it as far as finding wrestling. Because I can Dynamite replays.
Yeah.
If you search just wrestling, so you're going to have to be looking for something very specific, because if you search for just wrestling, you're going to get the replays for the pay-per-views, but you're going to have to drill down to something very specific and search. I just searched the AEW Dynamite replays, and it brings those up, so you are able to find those.
So whether you are using an app like Fight or BR Live, there are third party deals that, because Fight, it doesn't have just wrestling; it's combat sports, it's MMA, it's boxing, judo. I mean, it's what it's known for is combat sports, and of course, wrestling is a big part of that. And as Doug just noticed while swimming around there in the BR Live platform, they're very, very tied in with AEW, and it's a lot of AEW content on that. But there are other ways that you can get access to wrestling that actually is completely free, that if you don't have cable or satellite, are available to you as long as you have an internet connection. And those are, if you don't mind commercials, and this will take you back if you're an old school fan and had to sit through commercials anyway, you can go back to those days. But it is 100% free. There are a lot of streaming services now, and they have really grown during the pandemic as people looked for content when there wasn't a lot of original content being produced out there. And even though Netflix is obviously still the 800-pound gorilla, there are services such as Pluto and Crackle and these free ad-supported packages that have hundreds of channels sometimes, and like in the case of Pluto. And there's a lot of wrestling that can be found on these networks, including some of the channels that are strictly 24 hours dedicated to a particular wrestling product. For example, on Pluto, there are 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week channels dedicated to Impact Wrestling and to AAA Wrestling, which is the largest promotion in Mexico. So if you want old school and classic Lucha Libre, that's one way you can access it for free. Or if you're a big fan of the old TNA Asylum in Nashville, or the early days, or even the pay-per-views that maybe you didn't catch back in the day, 24 hours a day you can tune into those channels and find them there. Doug, I don't know, are you familiar with the Fubo Sports Network?
I am not. Actually, I wasn't real familiar with Pluto, and I was just I hopped over, opened up another browser, and I was having a look at it. This is pretty interesting. So, what is the other one you just talked about? Fubo?
It is a sports network, and
Okay.
it is on several packages that you can get in that free ad-supported streaming world.
Uh-huh.
For example, I know that the Stir service, which is very similar to Pluto. It's STIRR. They
Uh-huh.
have the Fubo Sports Network, and Fubo airs Ring of Honor's weekly show. So there's another way to find Ring of Honor for free. And they just recently signed a deal with MLW as well. So if one of your non-cable, non-satellite streaming packages, I think that's on Pluto, it's on Stir, it's on several of them. But you've got two of the largest independents out there that are now going to be putting their weekly broadcast on Fubo. And back to Stir before we leave off of it, Stir has a 24-hour-a-day ROH channel because Stir is owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, which owns Ring of Honor. So all that classic Ring of Honor content now is streaming 24 hours a day on Stir for free.
So, according to a quick search on Fubo, there are 204 sports channels available in my area for Fubo. So, go sports.
So you could just go nuts.
I could.
And Doug, I know you and I both are, but it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people who are watching are Amazon Prime members and maybe don't even realize that as part of their Amazon Prime membership, they have access to a ton of wrestling content. So if you have Amazon Prime, you also have access to Prime Video. And one of the biggest complaints about Prime Video, Doug, and maybe you might have a different experience, but I find that the criticisms are pretty valid. It's not the easiest thing to search. It's not like a
It's not.
Netflix where, yeah, it's not really well curated or categorized. They've done a better job here lately because I think they realized that folks were complaining about you couldn't tell what was free, what you needed to pay
Mm-hmm.
for. It was just hard to find things. But if you're determined, I mean, just throw wrestling in that search box, and folks, you will be surprised at the volume of content that comes up. A couple months ago, I watched a really low budget, but still a documentary on Tommy Wildfire Rich. Like, where else are you going to see that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
There is tons of wrestling promotions, independent wrestling promotions that have archived episodes on Amazon Prime. I found out just while researching for this show, Doug, you and I had talked before about Netflix losing access to Lucha Underground.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of your Amazon Prime subscription. So if you never got to
Ah.
Lucha Underground, folks, and I didn't, there's a way to get caught up on it. So yeah, if you already have Prime for the 2-day delivery, you got Prime Video as part of your subscription, and the amount of wrestling content there is ridiculous. I think last year I remember there was a collection that I watched where it had collected the best of the Mick Foley, Terry Funk Japanese death matches. And it was right there as part of my Prime membership. Who would have thought that Amazon Prime would give you access to
The Japanese death matches. So there
I
you
know,
go.
right?
Amazon Prime for all your Japanese death match needs.
And 2 days to get, a pack of toilet paper to you.
Right.
Obviously, it goes without saying too, that YouTube is another, big, wide, could get lost in it for days looking up wrestling content. And so we're again not going to talk about things that people have recorded and put up there that maybe they shouldn't or didn't have the rights to, but just even the official stuff. Any of the major companies, actually not even the majors, most of the independents as well, have their own YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Absolutely. YouTube is the best resource for a wrestling rabbit hole because you have everything from your, like you said, the major companies. You have your WWEs, your AEWs, your Impact, your ROH, your New Japan, your MLW, your AAA. One of my favorite promotions, the Joshi promotion, Stardom out of Japan. You can find all that stuff on YouTube. Plus, there's tons of news sites that
Two
filter
Bros Wrestling Show.
Two Bros Wrestling Show, exactly. And then on top of that, you have the beautiful things like the video versions of wrestling podcasts, by some top names in the business. Yeah, as I often disagree with him, but Jim Cornette's podcasts on YouTube are always entertaining and very informative because love or hate the man, he is a wealth of wrestling knowledge.
One thing, Doug, I will say too about YouTube, just pointing out specifically that beyond just the channels that put up a lot of their content or select matches, there are entire programs that are you can air on YouTube from some fairly major promotions. MLW's weekly show, when they go back to producing it, but when they were producing it, their weekly show airs on their YouTube channel. The weekly show for AAA actually now airs on their YouTube channel. And same for the NWA. NWA Power was a YouTube exclusive, and they're not done with Power, even though they're going the pay-per-view route right now with their restart this upcoming week. But they say Power will return, and it was fantastic. And every Tuesday night at 6:05, tune in, and you got a free studio wrestling program. So if you have a favorite promotion, or just like Doug said,
Kevin, are you there? You're froze up. You were froze, but you were still talking, and then you stopped talking, but now you're back.
Okay. I was on another screen, so I didn't know I was gone.
Stop multitasking on your end.
I'm pulling my bandwidth here. That's not a good thing for cord-cutting conversation, is it?
Right.
Hey, though, actually, that's a good thing to probably mention, that even though we're here to talk cord cutting, it may not be the solution for everyone, because obviously you need a very strong, very reliable signal. And I know most of us these days have that. Obviously it can come or go for any of us. But like my parents, for example, they can't pull hardly enough to stream anything on Netflix, much less multiple streams going at the same time in their household. So they live in a very rural part of the state that doesn't have access to a broadband internet. So there are still places like that, and if you're in one of those, then definitely you're going to want to hold on to that satellite or the cable bill just long enough for folks to finally reach your area.
This is very true. I mean, my folks have similar problems where, because they still live where I grew up, and there's no actual cellular service there, so they rely heavily on satellites or not dial up. What's the DSL? So
DSL,
yeah.
So if you have a reliable internet connection, though, or even fairly reliable, there's definitely a lot of things that you can do for free or relatively low charge beyond having a monthly cable bill or satellite bill for things that you don't watch. There are a lot of promotions that actually have their own service, their own apps. For example, say you don't have, access to Access, which is the cable channel that carries Impact Wrestling. Used to carry New Japan, but now they have Impact on Tuesday nights. But I personally don't have access to
Access
in my YouTube TV package. Mm-hmm. So how do I watch Impact? Well, Impact has their own app called Impact Plus, and there is, again, like with some of the ones we mentioned earlier, there's much on there that you could get if you paid for it's very similar to the WWE Network. It's $7-8. I think it's priced slightly cheaper than WWE on purpose, but all their archives, all their other content does come with a charge. But they do put their Impact show up there for free, and 5 days after it airs on Access on Tuesdays, by Saturday, I'm usually able to watch Impact on the Impact Plus app. Also, if you do Twitch, if you think of Twitch as a gaming service, which it primarily is, you talk about a rabbit hole.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes.
But Impact has their own Twitch channel, and they actually air Impact live as it airs on Access. So it's actually simulcast. So if you had Twitch, go and subscribe to Impact's channel on Twitch, 8 o'clock on Tuesday nights, you can watch Impact Wrestling as it airs, as you would if you'd actually had the cable package. And you get that for free.
That is very good to know, because I didn't realize they did that with Twitch, because there's some Tuesday night wrestling. Of course, now we have NXT on Tuesday nights, as long as they're doing Super Tuesdays.
I think they're back to Wednesday this week. Who knows?
But and Dynamite's moving, I think.
Maybe they're not sure. So maybe getting your content on demand or through one of these cord cutting means might be the best way in the future, because you can't rely on cable anymore as to when they're going to air the darn things.
This is true. You really can't, with all these other like sports ball things that are happening and preempting our fine wrestling products. But
I know we talked a bit about Ring of Honor, but since we're talking about promotions that have their own services or apps, ROH has what they call Honor Club, which is very similar to Impact Plus or the WWE Network. It is all the Ring of Honor archives. And as far as price point goes, there are 2 subscriptions. You can, for $9.99 a month, you'll have access to the entire archive of Ring of Honor, as well as access to the weekly TV show. You also would get 50% off of any pay-per-views you order. If you go for a yearly subscription of $119, you get all of that plus all of their pay-per-views included in that price.
Oh. Hey, I see we had a comment from Scott here. It looks like maybe Impact is also on Pluto.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe Scott, maybe if the current show airs on Pluto on the Impact channel, because I haven't caught that yet, but that would be fantastic. That'd be another way to catch the current product. But definitely all the Impact episodes from the past are streaming on there 24 hours a day. Doug, I'll let you talk a little bit, if you would, about New Japan World, because, again, while we're on the subject of promotions with their own apps, I've never actually subscribed. I know you don't any longer, but you can maybe talk a little bit about the cost and what access you have with when you subscribe to that.
New Japan World is where I really came into finding New Japan. I was the Cow Palace a couple of years ago. I don't even remember how I stumbled onto it, but I finally found a way to actually watch New Japan Wrestling and loved it. But it kind of waxes and wanes. As during the pandemic times, I unsubbed for the time being. But I mean, it's reasonable. I think it's 999 yen, which is I think $10 in US dollars. But I mean, it's very reasonable as far as like compared to the WWE. And I hate to be the wrestling snob, but I think the product is superior. I mean that's subject to taste, I guess. If you're used to the WWE product and that type of wrestling, that's not what you're going to get. But you can see a lot more of just straight up wrestling with the actual New Japan World. You're seeing wrestling. You're not seeing a lot of like storylines and that taking place. If you the storylines are taking place like pre and post match, and a lot really evolves in the ring, but you're not seeing a lot of that drama that builds and a lot of like promo cutting like you're going to see in the WWE. But for reasonably priced, you get to see the Young Lions. You're seeing all their road shows, which again, not a lot right now, but I mean it's starting to come back. And it's probably time for me to resub since they're starting to get out and go live again. But it's for the price,
And I'm
excellent
glad you
choice.
said that, Doug, because it made me think I forgot to mention that as a differentiator between a Ring of Honor and something like what Impact Plus or WWE Network is. Their road shows are all broadcast, so all their live events, and I've been fortunate to attend several.
Mm,
And then find them later on because they are every last one of them filmed. They make sure that their live events are consequential to the TV product, and they do so by letting the hardcore fans that have that subscription have
hmm
access to everything they do, including those live events that otherwise would just be for the folks that were there in the audience. So that's
Right.
kind of a neat thing that New Japan does that too. It does now. You can go back as well, right? It's
Oh
not just
yeah, absolutely. There are years and years and years of content. So if you want to watch one of those 7-star Kenny Omega, Kazucha Okada matches, you can go back and find those super easy.
or if you wanted to go real old school and then go back and watch a bunch of Tiger Mask stuff from the 70s and 80s, you can do that
Absolutely,
too, right?
absolutely. It's all there. Yeah,
And I think Doug will end our our talk on cord cutting with the granddaddy of them all. And maybe it seems like, well, why do you want to talk about the WWE Network? Well, we're not going to talk about the WWE Network and all that's on there because honestly, that's a show for another time that we and
yeah,
Doug and I have talked about doing. Sort of reviewing the content of the WWE Network. But here recently, WWE Network added a free tier. So I think it's germane to our topic of cord cutting because if you don't want to pay the $9.99 a month, which is kind of a bargain for the pay-per-views and a lot of the content they have, you can definitely sample the WWE Network now for free. They claim to have more than 15,000 titles on their app that doesn't require payment or a credit card. So you won't find recent pay-per-views, of course, but you'll see things like Raw Talk, which airs right after Raw, and same for Talking Smack, our Truth Game Show, and some certain documentaries. But you'll find recent episodes, relatively recent episodes of Raw, SmackDown, NXT that are just a couple months old, as well as select pay-per-view events that sometimes when they want to, like, say, hype up, SummerSlam like we had here, within the last month, they would put a best of SummerSlam Slam collection up on the free tier of the network. So it is a way to get some classic wrestling content and even some current wrestling content without the cost of that subscription if you don't want to go the full 999. So, Doug, if we left anything out, there's a lot of wrestling.
Honestly, we probably have because the interwebs are a huge place and wrestling is a huge thing. Not as huge as it was when it was in the mainstream, say in its heyday of the Attitude Era, but it's still a very huge thing. And there are lots of nooks and crannies we probably haven't even begun to uncover on the interwebs. But I think for the most part, it's a good cord cutter for wrestlers 101 session.
Essentially, there's 1,001 different ways you can build your own wrestling experience. You would never have to, if you didn't want to spend a dime, you wouldn't have to. if you wanted to only spend a certain amount of money, you could, add that up and figure out what you watch the most. And you would never run out of wrestling content to watch with all the things we just talked about and the many, many more we didn't. I ran into someone at one of the last wrestling shows I went to before the pandemic who was very versed in the Raw and SmackDown product, but only so he didn't have cable, but he had the network so he could see all the pay-per-views and then hit YouTube for the news sites that Doug mentioned for recaps, and figured he knew enough about the storylines that he would just focus his money not on that $200 a month cable bill, but instead on the $9.99 subscription to see where the payoff's going to be, and then you use YouTube as a resource. And I imagine a lot of people do that. Why not? I mean, if you only have so much time and only so much money, and it's a way to do it.
This is very true. I mean, because just like a lot of sports, or I imagine this is the way it works in sports, since there's a lot of sports recap shows and networks built around such things. The YouTube is a great resource for that, because like this week, like I said earlier at the beginning of the show, Dynamite's the only thing I've been able to actually watch this week. Yeah, usually I catch up on all my wrestling on the weekends, but I haven't had that opportunity. But yeah, I can still hit those news sites and get the high points and get my sports entertainment recaps for the week. So I'm informed. I didn't see it firsthand, but I at least think I know what's going on.
Which is said a lot with Doug.
True story.
Brother, I'm sorry.
I did set myself up for that one.
Doug, hopefully you folks have enjoyed the talk on cord cutting. I'm sure it's something that we can readdress at another point because it changes so quickly. It might be worth a future show as well down the line. But if you have nothing else, Doug, when it comes to cord cutting, I say we get to the big finish, because I believe all three of your categories are going to have to come from Dynamite.
They're totally going to have to come from Dynamite, because that's the only thing I watched this week.
Oh, let's hit the big finish.
All right. Did I put it up? There it is. Okay. There it is. Big finish.
You want to go to your Dynamite embarrassment of the week?
You know what? Honestly, as I was watching Dynamite, I was thinking this whole Kip Sabian, not Kip Sabian, piece, the whole best man thing was going nowhere fast. I was like, this is so bad. Why is this a thing that's happening? I'm glad to see Brian Pillman Jr. got some actual time on something besides Dark. Not that Dark is a bad show, but he's actually on the network this week. And then I'm like, okay, great. Who is this? And then Miro Rusev shows up, complete flip for me there, because I was ready to just lay it down and say, yep, there's my embarrassment of the week.
That's hilarious.
But so spoilers, Rusev is now on is now All Elite, which I was watching a stream of his on his YouTube where this man is just a happy camper again. He's just so jovial. I'm not sure if he's supposed to be a heel right now, though, because he comes out, he's the best man of a mid-card heel for the wedding, but he's kind of, everybody popped for him. He cut a promo. He's smiling the whole time. It was a very babyface promo, but
with a whole different look too. For those that didn't see it,
different look. Rocking the M&M bleached blonde hair. He also talked a bit about his outfit. Apparently, he was in L.A. And decided to treat himself and buy himself something really nice, which turned out to be the outfit he wore when he came out, which it looked like he just grabbed whatever clothes that he had lying around. But apparently that Gucci that Gucci Mickey Mouse sweatshirt or t-shirt that he had on, it cost him some money because he was in LA to get it. They didn't have his size in LA, so the Gucci store in LA called the Gucci store in Miami and they hooked him up with the outfit he had on, because there were no 2X's for him. I guess anywhere in the on the West Coast.
So my embarrassment of the week, actually, Doug, sorry, it's not anything you've probably seen yet, but
okay. The way this week's going, I probably won't get to see it.
Actually, you will still know what I'm talking about and agree with it, because this week there wasn't anything that caught me so irritated that I thought, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to talk about something that we could have mentioned on this show for months now and just haven't, because I think we've gotten so used to it, which is unfortunate. But because I was so low on anything that really made me upset this week, I'm going to go with the 24/7 title. We've never mentioned it on here as an embarrassment of the week, but you talk about a completely useless waste of time. I know that this concept is kind of a take on what we did back in the Attitude Era with the hardcore title, when that started to become a parody and became less about hardcore and more about jokes as to how many scenarios can we have where people are in
Right.
their everyday lives or not on a wrestling set and a wrestling match breaks out, which could be funny. I'm not going to say it couldn't be, but once you've seen it 1,000 times, you have seen it 1,000 times. And so all respect to R-Truth, who I think is not only a talented wrestler, but just an incredibly funny human being. He gets a
Mm-hmm.
lot of mileage out of not very much with this thing. But this past Monday, Doug, on Raw, as the ninjas were there, and there was a catering bit with a ninja whose head was in the, you lift the
Okay.
food off
That old
the
shtick.
catering
Yeah.
cart. Yeah, exactly. It's just shtick, and I thought, I'm going to not talk about Raw Underground for 1 week or something else. I'm like, we've never mentioned it, but I think we almost, at least I do, I started just tuning out those segments, but they
Mm-hmm.
are definitely a waste of time. The man's like a 39-time 24/7 champion or something like that. Seriously, I think the
Right.
number's 39 now. Oh, yeah, that's my embarrassment of the week. It's time to say that the idea to rehash that wasn't great, at least with at least in the Attitude Era with the hardcore title, every now and then you'd see someone get hit in the head with a cookie sheet or something. You don't even get that satisfaction with the 24/7 title.
And we all know that the cookie sheet is my favorite hardcore weapon. Going
That
back to
might
the
be
90s.
that might be one headshot that should still allow, Doug. I know that
Exactly.
no more chair shots, but I think
No,
cookie
no.
sheets are still safe.
Yeah. It's speaking of cookie sheets and headshots, I'm gonna jump in here and talk about my performer of the week.
Sure.
I'm going to give a nod to AEW as a whole because, well, first of all, it's the only thing I've seen this week, and I am all in. I need me a shirt that says I'm all elite too, but but I really have to give a nod to AEW, Matt Hardy, and AEW more so for trying their best to do the right thing. Eh, Even if it was spawned by a lot of fan backlash, and I like to think we helped.
Yours truly.
I'd like to think that we help push that across the line because they bring Hardy back, and just especially after Reby, Hardy had all those nasty tweets, or I mean, understandably so. I can imagine either one of our wives, if that would have been us, the tweets that would have been flying, and then the apparent irresponsibility of all that, and I would not have been wanted to be Matt Hardy when he finally got home, because I'm sure that gal tore into him as well. But they tried to course correct, and I think that is something that AEW does above some of the other competition out there right now is they will course correct when especially there's a fan outcry for it, and they listen. I think it was a nice touch for them to bring Reby in.
Yeah.
With the baby, if nothing else, to humanize the whole situation, and to also say, hey, there's no heat here. We all get it. We screwed up. Look, she's cool. We're cool. Everything is cool. So, and Matt, can still speak in coherent sentences, and so that's good. Dude probably needs some time off though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad to hear he's taking it. And, you do, though, get one of those, right? Like you get one pass. Like,
One,
okay,
right? Yeah, exactly. You
proof is
get one,
definitely in the pudding. The next
right?
time it happens, we'll see how they handle it. But hopefully, yeah, lesson learned. And at least they went out of their way to do the make culpa bit, and which they needed to. There was just no doubt that they needed to.
And I really wonder if that had been like two younger stars, say that was Sammy Guevara and Kip Sabian. Would either one of those said, okay, no, I've got to finish this, or is that like the old school wrestling mentality that exists still in Matt Hardy?
I think what I said too at the time, though, I think that that stipulation of the loses their career, book them into a corner. That might be something else, Doug, worth watching moving forward. Do they do those kind of stipulations anymore, or did they learn their lesson on? Yeah, if things go sideways, you've booked yourself into a no-win situation on live television.
That's true, but that's. I mean, it's wrestling. Nothing is forever. Nothing really sticks, and loser leaves town and all that. Because I mean that's an easy way to book around it. You have Sammy come out the very next live show and say, you know what, I put Matt Hardy down in like 2 minutes or whatever it was, but and now he's out of here. But I want him back because that wasn't enough punishment. He needs to come back. He cuts a beautiful heel promo about how Matt comes back for even more punishment, and we do it again and again and again because. I mean, it would have been so easy to course correct that too, with just a little bit of creative writing. But
I do think you might be onto something though. That Matt being old school, compared to most wrestlers, I'd say those generation of athletes probably are more likely to think the show must go on
oh yeah,
because, particularly if they worked in the WWE system,
mm-hmm.
that's the way that they were told. That like it's live TV, anything can happen, but you don't stop the show for anything. And
Right,
not to
and
bring back awful subjects, but as
yes, I know where.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a man can die in the ring. The pay per view still goes on. Yeah.
yeah, that's the example right there of why you have to have contingencies. There's no
Mm-hmm.
reason in this day and age when we all know that it is a show that the show should go on if someone is seriously hurt, and Matt
Right.
Hardy is definitely seriously hurt. So hopefully lessons learned. Doug, if you since you skipped to your performer of
Yeah.
the week,
Right.
I'll save my match of the week to last because performer of the week, it's piggybacks on something you were talking about earlier. I'm giving it to Miro because it was much talked about, and I think as far as all the talent that AEW has signed, if you include Jack Swagger and FTR, I think Miro is closer aligned to those kind of guys
Mm-hmm.
than say maybe where you might want to pick on Cardona. I can't
Oh
think of
yeah, Zack Ryder.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like, and no offense again. I mean, I hope they do great, but I've noticed some people on the internet complaining that AEW said they weren't going to just pick up WWE cast-offs, and here's another WWE cast-off. That is not the case.
Oh,
There's
that, I,
certainly talent out there that was untapped. This isn't an Impact WCW WWF situation where they were just at the old Impact, not the new Impact.
mm-hmm.
Back in the
Right.
'90s, if they had or early 2000s when they started, if they had
Oh
anyone
yeah.
that had any a cup of coffee with the big promotion, they would take him in, no matter what their age, condition. Uh,
Uh huh.
Miro was underutilized when he was there, doing nothing for the last 4 or 5 months that he was under contract. And I think a motivated Miro could be a top tier player for them. Don't you think?
I absolutely agree. I think AEW has done an excellent job of cherry picking, the WWE. I mean, cast offs. Yeah, I
Yeah, that's
mean,
a bad word, but I know
but
what you.
but the people who've been future endeavored, they've done a very fine job of being able to pull in the people who are going to be big draws, the people who may have not had the best runs in WWE. And I think Cardona's got some mileage left. I think Cardona's in All Elite because of his relationship with one of the vice presidents, and that's cool, man. I mean, it is what it is. Zack Ryder can deliver. We know this.
You also know that they can't pick up everybody, nor should they pick up everybody that
Exactly.
are no longer under WWE contract. But cherry pick's a good word because if it's the right talent that can make the right impact, I think Miro is going to be the right talent.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this is a qualified performer of the week, and it was nothing to do with Miro. I liked his promo afterwards, took a dig at the old company, all that was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of relates to what you said earlier. I might question. I'm happy he's there because it had been long rumored and fans clamored for it. But the manner in which they did it, I'm less certain about. As you said, a mid card at best
Mm-hmm.
storyline where he's the best man in a wedding. I'm sure it's going to give him a chance to show his entertaining side. But that whole FTR kind of like real serious push, or that Jack Swagger, I'm in the I'm in
Mm-hmm.
Chris Jericho's first faction. I mean, I would like to have seen him come in under bigger circumstances than the way he came in, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't have anywhere to go but up. So I'm going to, cautiously hope that they get this part of it out of the way so that they can start moving him up the card.
Yeah, because I mean, he was even joking about that on the stream I saw where he was talking about who better to have be brought in on a wrestling wedding angle than him because he knows a thing or two about wrestling weddings.
Yeah, that's pretty good, actually.
So So it's a play from the old company. We'll see where it goes, but
Well, Doug,
it,
I was hoping that with the match of the week, you'd be able to help me out here because I had two I wanted to choose, and I thought for sure you'd choose one of them. But knowing what all you saw this week, I don't think you're going to choose either one.
well, and I'm
So
going to
what was
say,
your match of the week on Wednesday night?
unfortunately, I don't remember anything that really sticks out. It
Oh,
has been quite a whirlwind of the week, so I'm just going to plead the fifth on a match of the week this week and use my pass for it.
so if this is an unforced error on your part, can I talk about two then?
Absolutely,
All right. So Doug's
absolutely.
favorite match of the week, had he seen it, and then I'll get to mine. Because I thought, NXT, which I'm sure Doug will at least catch up on NXT at some point. But 2 weeks ago when they had
Mm-hmm.
their show to crown the new NXT champion, they had a four-way match that was an Iron Man contest, which I had
Mm-hmm.
never seen a four-way Iron
Iron
Man.
Man, absolutely,
I
yeah.
fully expected last time we had a show, Doug, that's what I would be talking about for my match of the week. And then AEW had that pay-per-view and that women's match that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm a fan of all the guys that were involved, and I'm a sucker for the Iron Man concept. I've always loved that. I love it, especially when they do a true Iron Man, not the 30-minute variety, because I think
Mm-hmm.
people have short attention spans. It was a full hour. I had to dock points at the end though when it didn't go. You invest a full hour and they didn't give you a finish. Well, this
Mm-hmm.
past week we got our finish, and it was a half hour in addition, I guess, if you wanted to, continue, call it a continuation. But Adam Cole and Finn Balor had the match that you would expect them to have, and that's what I figured that Doug would pick as his match of the week. You probably know who won, Doug. Can I spoil it for you?
Yeah, go ahead, because I understand we have a new Prince on NXT, right?
Finn Balor won in a great contest. Adam Cole broke character a bit and was congratulating him and shaking his hand backstage. A better man won, kind of thing. So who knows? This might actually be, after much rumor, Adam Cole's swan song on NXT. Maybe he's moving to one of the other brands, but it is definitely a match worth catching. And I thought Doug would probably pick it, and he probably would have had he seen it.
Had I seen it, I probably would have.
So I had as my alternate match, which I will mention, Wheeler Utah versus Jonathan Gresham. Ring of Honor, folks, is back on the air, and if nothing else, I was just happy to have something. If I wanted to not pick from the big two, which you have to do most weeks, I always was hopeful that if I wanted to go out of the mainstream, that maybe Impact would have a particularly good match or something. But now that Ring of Honor is back, there's another option for where you could see a match that really just grabs your eye. Doug, I was not familiar. I mean, I was familiar with the concept. I had never seen Ring of Honor back in the original days of the Pure title. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you ever saw any of those Pure title matches.
Mm-mm.
So this was my first experience with a Pure match. And what they do with this is, now that they're back on air, they're crowning a Pure champion, and the Pure title dates back to the early days of Ring of Honor. Really, one of the things it was founded on is one, honor in wrestling, and pure pro wrestling, not the show part of it, that we play it up like it's real.
Mm-hmm.
So for the next 8 weeks, they're having this tournament to crown a new Pure champion, go back sort of to the roots of the company. And it really plays in well with their new setup because, of course, we don't have crowds. So watching this contest to see, I'm trying to see how are they doing the pandemic era different than the companies we've been watching. I'm curious to how this is going to
Mm-hmm.
play out. So they're in an empty arena like, Impact is and like WWE and AEW were for a time. But they have, because it is a Pure title match and there's no fans, they work that somehow into the tournament in that there were times the announcers did not sound like wrestling announcers. There were times they were close mic'd and you would think they were calling chess or calling golf.
Oh.
They were whispering. Okay, right now what he's thinking is, okay, that's really applying, the
Oh.
pressure to the carotid artery. And it actually added to the suspense of it looking somewhere between an amateur wrestling match and a real wrestling match. I thought to myself, this is what Raw Underground should be if it was actually done right.
Right.
And so they had two matches on the show, and they set each of them up with 10-minute preview of the background of the guys from the
Oh,
time
nice.
they're kids to becoming fans to their journey through wrestling. So they, again, play up that sporting event feel. Then the pure rules themselves. The first match, which was also great, was two former world champions in Jay Lethal versus Dalton Castle. But honestly, Jonathan Gresham, who's probably one of the most unheralded technical wrestlers in the world, and Yuta, who I found out trained under Drew Gulak. I found that out in his little preview package, and holds victories over Matt Riddle and things on the independents. This kid obviously has those skills too. It played into the pure concept because not only is it a technical wrestling match, there are specific rules to pure matches. You get 3 rope breaks, so you have to use them strategically. You could be in a hold and you have to think to yourself, okay, how much time's left in this match? Because if it goes to the time limit, judges decide. So there's no non-winners, even if it goes to the time limit. You have a judging panel. But if it's early in the contest and you find yourself in a finishing maneuver, you might want to use one of your 3 rope breaks. Rope break comes, the ref stands both men up, calls out, they announce over top of the the intercom system that Jonathan Gresham has used this first rope break. You're allowed 1 punch to the face.
Can we apply that to everyday life situations? That would be awesome.
It would probably decrease the punches to the face you're taking right now, right?
It probably would.
But yeah, that too. It's like after that, it has to be open-handed, or punches are allowed anywhere else at any time except low blows. But you get 1 to the face, you get warned. They make you go back to the neutral corner. The ref calls down to the judges. They get on the overhead and say, Jonathan Gresham gets his first flag for punching Yuta in the face. Yeah, and the next time it's an automatic disqualification. So the rules really play into you're watching a chess match as much as you're watching a wrestling match. And if you like technical wrestling, and I know a lot of you do, I know that Doug and I are both huge fans, it's just a different way of presenting the product. And it was my match of the week, and it has me real excited about watching the tournament moving forward. I'm happy to be Honor's back.
So this is Ring of Honor. This is like Sinclair Broadcasting Ring of Honor. This should be on my DVR when I finally get to watch wrestling again, right?
You will mark out, Doug. You will absolutely. Right. It'll tickle the old school fan in you.
That's exciting. Is that it? Are we? It. Oh my goodness, we are in under an hour tonight. It's been a while since we've done that.
And the folks at home may even appreciate it. We do appreciate you all tuning in, because
Absolutely.
Next week we're back to pay-per-view season, Doug. We got Clash of Champions, so we're going to be previewing it. No pressure, Doug.
That means there's a lot of WWE programming I've got to make sure to watch this week,
or at least watch a recap. Doug, watch our show.
Find out
how with a cord cutting you can find recaps and new shows. Watch one of those.
All right.
Get ready for ours.
so it's a heavy week of wrestle talk and what culture wrestling for me this week. So until then, everybody, watch Two Bros.
Watch Two Bros.
Good night, everybody.